Hey guys, welcome to another Pitmaster X episode. I'm Roel and today we're going to be grilling up a tri-tip with our homemade barbecue rub and a homemade barbecue sauce. It's going to be so delicious. I already started up the Kamado Big Joe because I love to use the Big Joe for these types of cooks. You know, you have a big surface area, so we'll get to that. But first, I got this tri-tip. In Germany they call it Burgermeister piece, Burgermeisterstuk. In the Netherlands they call it an ezel, but in English it's tri-tip. So this one in particular has got a lot of fat on it. So we need to trim some of that off to have at least some meat showing for the recipe that we want to do today. So what I'm doing is I'm looking for pieces to cut away, and especially the hard fat. Now while you're cutting away the hard fat, you will also see how the grains in this cut are running, because that's very specific. You have three directions in which the grains are running. This part here, the grains are running in this direction. In this part here, the grains are running in this direction. And here in the point, they are at a slight angle. When you're trimming down your meat, you will find all of this. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to have to trim down your meat. We cleaned up the bottom side of the tri-tip and it looks beautiful. We do want to leave some fat in there, and most of it is intermuscular fat, so that's what we want to keep. But now we're going to take a look at the top, and there's basically a big fat cap there. So the question is, do we take it off or leave it on? Traditionally, if you're cooking an American tri-tip, you would take this off, but I love that fat so much. I'm not going to take all of it off. I'm just going to skim off a little bit off the top, because there's also some membrane here. I'm taking that off, clean it up a little bit. Now I'm gonna save that fat because I'm gonna use it for our barbecue sauce. Now for our rub, I'm gonna start with grinding down some coffee beans, and these are Arabica, 100% Arabica coffee beans. Now I'm grinding down peppercorns, and these are 4-season peppercorns, which means it has black, white, red, green peppercorns in it. It just gives you a little bit more flavor depth into your pepper. And this is a really simple rub. It's just 1 part salt, 1 part crushed black pepper or grind down, and 1 part coffee, then 1/4 part garlic powder and 1/4 part onion powder. Boom! It's a bit windy. This is optional, but for a little bit texture and sharpness, I want to add some chili flakes. So that's about 1 teaspoon of chili flakes, and that's maybe 1/16 part. I'll put the recipe to this rub down below in the video description on YouTube. Wow, that's a beautiful smell. Let's get this on our tri-tip. So we'll just drizzle a little bit of olive oil on our tri-tip, just enough to make the rub stick. So let's get the beautiful rub that we created on there. It's gonna put on a heap of flavor onto our tri-tip. I'm gonna treat this tri-tip a little bit different than I normally would because of the fat on top. I'm just gonna score the fat cap so it will render out a little bit more easy when we start grilling it. And what I'm gonna do is put salt on the fat cap just to help render it down and make it crunchy. And if you don't have the fat cap on your tri-tip, don't worry about it, just forget it. If you really want to try this fat cap, just buy a picanha cut and you will have the beautiful fat cap that I'm talking about. I set up the Kamado Joe Big Joe with an indirect side with a heat deflector, and then a direct side with a cast iron grill. So first we're going to let this tri-tip come up to temperature, and then we're going to give it a quick sear. Close the lid. Close the top vent a little bit and let the grill settle at around 140 degrees Celsius, which is 280 degrees Fahrenheit. To go with our tri-tip, we're going to make a beautiful barbecue sauce. I set up the Kamado Joe Classic for a direct cook with a bowl, and this is where the flexibility system really comes into place. I've it set up now that there's a little bit heat underneath the pan. This is just my favorite terracotta pot that I'm using. Fits right in there perfect. But I can also lower it. So now in this case I'm gonna softens some onions and a little bit of garlic, so I'm setting it to the lowest position. I'm adding a little bit of olive oil to get the beef going, the beef fat, because this is where the beef fat comes in. I'm going to use that beef fat that we cut off our tri-tip to render down and become the fat that we need for our sauce. Just a few pieces will be enough. We get a nice puddle of fat in the middle. We can start putting in an onion. So this is a whole onion that I just chopped up coarse, let it soften a little bit. I'm also adding 3 garlic cloves, whole, and a diced size of ginger. The onion is getting a little bit shiny, and for our heat we're going to add red jalapeno peppers. Red jalapeno peppers are definitely a little bit, they produce a little bit more heat than the green jalapeno peppers. And that's what I'm looking for in the sauce. So I'm adding 2 peppers now, but if you don't like the heat, just take them out or put in some little bit of black pepper just to get that little zing. I'm also going to add a red bell pepper. And we have enough fat so I can discard the fat that we rendered down. We don't want too much fat in our sauce. So we'll just let these ingredients turn soft, close the lid, and set the fans to fully open all the way. The paprika, the onions, they've turned soft, so we're going to add tomato pulp. 400 grams of tomato pulp, which is 1 can. Then we're going to add 100 grams of sugar, the juices of a single lime, and 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce or Worcestershire sauce. And then to give this barbecue sauce a real oak flavor, you know, a real body, I'm going to use 100 milliliters of Kentucky whiskey. So I just want a little bit of lower temperature in my pan, and I'm going to lift it up to the highest position. There we go. Close the vents so you can fit 1 finger in, bottom vent as well, and just let it slowly simmer for around 10 to 15 minutes. It's been 15 minutes. Let's take a look at our sauce. Oh yes, it smells fantastic. The ingredients are turning soft, and it's time to take her out now. We're going to blend her up. Make sure that you have a blender that is heat resistant. If you don't have a blender, just get an immersion blender. That will do the trick as well. Liquefy. This is the last opportunity to add flavors to our sauce. Oh wow, that is a good sauce. It doesn't need anything else. I'm just gonna run it through this strainer or sieve, and that will make it a real smooth sauce. If you don't mind your sauce being chunky and don't mind it not being that smooth, then you can skip this step. We're not trying to get it like a watery sauce, so we're pushing all these fibers through and making them really fine. So we'll quickly check on a tri-tip to see if she's ready for a final sear. And we're getting a reading of 50 degrees Celsius, that's 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, and we'll just let the Kamado Joe, Big Joe, come up to temperature so we can start searing. So now our final sear. Place the tri-tip over the direct heat side of the grill, and we're just gonna give it a quick sear. We don't want to burn anything, just for that Maillard effect, that caramelization of the meat. Oh, you get that instant smell of all the spices. Wow. Flip it around. And we gotta watch this part because there's fat that's rendering off, dripping into the fire. So be careful for any flare-ups. And at this point, the Kamado Joe Big Joe is giving me a lot of flexibility. The center of the heat is right in the center of the grill. So I'm getting a lot of opportunity to put it all the way to the edge and not catch too much of the heat. And I really want to play with that fat, get it as crispy as I can without burning any of it. Yes, and that's absolutely beautiful. So let's get her off the grill. She looks absolutely gorgeous. That fat cap, that's a big bonus, a big fat bonus, because it became crispy and the fat rendered off. Beautiful. Well, we still have to wait for around 10 minutes to let her redistribute the juices that are in the meat. Oh man, that's the hardest part. Well, let's slice into her. Wow, beautiful. Gorgeous. I can smell the rub. They did a great job. We also get a little bit of smoke ring around the edge from the charcoal, the big block charcoal that we used. Put some of the barbecue sauce that we created, that hot sauce on the plank. And then we need to do the taste test. Fantastic. The combination of the beef and the flavors of the rub and the sauce is absolutely fantastic. And then how delicious, juicy this tri-tip is. Well, that tri-tip turned out absolutely fantastic, and I really hope you guys give this recipe a try because the combination of flavors is fantastic. The tri-tip is really juicy and tender. It's just one of these things that you gotta try. So leave me a comment down below in the description, give me a big thumbs up, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, because if you don't hit that bell you don't get notifications from YouTube. See you guys next time.